Hello, everyone, and welcome to free Villainous Geekiness for de-stressing, relaxing, and world domination. How is everybody doing tonight?
So what does the Dark Lord do for relaxation?
Well, I don't actually, but I figured I could pretend. What do normal people do for relaxation? That's a normal question, right?
I wouldn't know. I don't know any normal people.
Yeah, I don't either. I had this hilarious moment with a package in that I was expecting a terribly important package, and UPS has been sending me notifications about this package all day, and I went downstairs and I got the package, and it was this very, very cheap piece of plastic prop material, something that you couldn't even use really for a child's toy. I'm thinking, what happened to the actual thing I was supposed to be getting in the mail? And it was like 3 minutes to, and I said, I'm going to run downstairs and just see if I missed a package. I had missed a package. So now I have found the package, and here we are. So for those of you who are just joining us, which would be everybody, we're going to do a very relaxing hangout sort of thing. It's very chill. It's very calm. Feel free to fade in and out. We're only running till 9:30. It's not a marathon, the way I sometimes like to do them. And Chelsea and I will be reading short fiction. I think I'll actually read something from not my own cookbook, but Nanny Og's cookbook to get us started.
Nanny Og? Nanny Og, the witch from
The Witch from Disport.
The one that sings a porcupine can a hedgehog can never be buggered. That Nanny Og?
She does sing that song. I cannot swear to the anatomical truth of the song, but I can swear that song is one she sings. Now, I will be probably reading a little bit from one of my own books. I will probably not be reading from the Necronomicon, because much as this is a great book and seems to be very well researched, they got one hell of a budget on this thing. It's really, the pictures are something else, and I don't think that I have the equipment to really convey the pictures in this book properly to an online audience. Although, of course, say the muesli of Erzan is tempting in every possible sense. I'm not sure why there's an albino penguin au vin blanc, but I suppose that if I were to read The Mountains of Madness again, which of course I don't want to do, not wanting to go mad, I might find out. But yes, hello, welcome to the Traveling Revelers. Yes, I would recommend as a drink pairing, I would recommend taking a glass of Lillet Blanc, if possible, then putting in some Virgil's ginger beer, if you have it. Sprite will also do. And then some sort of botanical gin, maybe something floral. Ice that well. You can shake it or stir it. I don't care. And I think that would be a good accompaniment to what we're about to do. Or if you don't like the reading, straight Buffalo Trace whiskey, just down the hatch. Bam. That is my suggestion. But what do I know? At any rate, let me see if I've got some sort of banners here ready. I am not Victor Sierra. I am author Jeff Mack. You can find my works on Amazon by looking up Jeff Mack or looking up Villain Punk. And I'll create a banner for Chelsea when she is reading. But first, and we have, it looks like, the one and the only Invisible Mr. Agitator. Now, Mr. Agitator is, among other things, as you all know, the lead singer for the band Digital Mindy, and is, of course, one of the foremost villain punks in the entire universe. And we know that he's recording tonight, so we don't know how busy his schedule is. So, Mr. Agitator, if you're coming in to do your part now, you can do your part anytime you want. Otherwise, I will do a quick read and then we'll go over to you.
Hello. Can you hear me?
We can hear you just fine.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I'm here. I know I'm invisible right now, but I figured I could at least stop in and say hi for a little bit while I'm in the middle of recording and mixing. We've got a lot of cool stuff coming up. We're working on the new album, but we're also working on the new light show, the new video show. We're building a lot of stuff right now. We're excited to be back at Evil Expo coming up here.
Oh, yes, I should have a banner for that, which I don't. But let me just see if I can replace this banner with V. V is for villains.com.
That's what we're for, yes.
Well, I'm going to do a brief reading, and then I will let Mr. Agitator talk a little bit about his current work, and then I will let him get back to his slaving away at what Pete Towns 11 hours in a tin can, which frankly sounds enjoyable to me.
Yes.
But I'm weird. All right. So this is from Nanny Ogg's cookbook, and I prefer short pieces in general. This is a recipe contributed by Lord Vetinari, who is the benevolent patrician of Ankh-Morpork, the city so oft described in the Discworld books. And Lord Vetinari has, shall we say, a little bit of a devious mind, in the same way that one might say that a turtle has a little bit of a shell and a preponderancy to order pizzas throughout the 1990s for no particular reason. Now, this is not a complicated recipe, but I think we should follow it carefully. Bread and water. Kindly donated by Lord Vetinari, patrician of Ankh-Morpork. Ingredients: 3 whole, freshly baked loaves. 1 flagon, freshly drawn water. However efficient a ruler may be, we feel that his diet might be improved by some artificial additive, such as arsenic. Many rulers have thought ways to avoid this. This is one classical method. Have sufficient dough made to make 3 loaves of bread. Bake the resulting loaves in an oven. Both these operations should be supervised by at least 2 reliable employees. Select one of the 3 loaves. The other 2 must be eaten by the baker. Slice it. Select slices at random and have these tested in your presence by members of the palace staff or members of your family, if you are not fortunate enough to live in a palace. From the remaining slices, select one. Place this on a plate selected at random from the kitchen. Have the remaining plates licked by the kitchen staff. Pause to observe any negative reactions to this operation or to the earlier slice testing. In the meantime, assuming all's gone well, have a bucket of water drawn from the well. Have this boiled, poured into a flagon, and cooled. From this flagon, pour 4 glasses of water. Select 3 at random and have them drunk by different members of the palace staff from those who are testing the bread plates. By the way, this is a lot of staff to have tested. I'm just saying. It's a lot of staff. You might now believe that you have a glass of water and some slices of bread that are free of poison, in which case you have failed to grasp the situation. There are such things as antidotes, which even a trainee poisoner will take as a precautionary measure. And then, of course, there was the case of Lord Samphire. The bread passed the test, and so did the water. The problem came to light only if you ate the bread and then drank the water. Here is my preferred method, which has stood me in good stead. 1. Arrange the politics of the country over a period of years so that poisoning you will be more trouble than it is worth and interfere with the private ambitions of too many people just at that moment. 2. Make sure there are, among the city's civil service, some unpredictable men who will consider your poisoning a personal insult against them and generally cause a lot of fuss. 3. Then eat what you please. And that is Lord Veterinary's recipe for bread and water. We will gladly take your loud applause, cheers, throw money.
Yay!
And in our readings early on, we'll just pause for the invisible Mr. Agitator and just ask him, Mr. Agitator, what project is it that keeps you in the studio so late at night?
Well, I'm working on a lot of projects. A couple of them are private projects. I can't really talk about them because I'm being used as a third-party contractor to do recording, mixing, and mastering. And I'm not sure if they want to discuss it yet, so I don't want to jump above board and start talking about other people's projects. But I can tell you about the ones that I'm working on for myself.
Right. Tell us about that.
Yeah, what I'm doing right now is I'm putting the final touches on Steal the 80s, which is our all cover CD that's coming out. We're going to be releasing it probably this summer. We're doing a lot of different 80s, 70s, different tracks, but we're doing them in a villain flavor so that it's not just hey, a shot-for-shot remake. Some of them will be tongue-in-cheek. Some of them will be comedic. So we're definitely taking a stab at it, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Certain amount of villainous stabbing.
Oh, I like to villainously stab.
I'm really curious how that's going to go. Unfortunately, of course, paraphrase Frank Zappa, talking about music is like jogging about art. So while I really want to know what it's going to be like, I want to say, well, can you give us an example of a song and how you're going to do it? I suppose it'll probably have more effect if we just listen to your interpretation of the song.
Right.
I'm excited for that. Have you chosen all your songs already?
We have most of them. We've done well over what's going to end up on the actual CD. But I like to have a lot to choose from. And then I figure, hey, if it goes well and people really connect to it and we have as much fun doing it as I think we're having, then we'll go ahead and do a volume 2 or something like that down the road. But for instance, we're doing we did the safety dance not too long ago, and that's just a song that I've always found to be so ridiculous that it's like, how do you do the safety dance and make it badass or fun? And for some reason,
move the safety from the safety dance?
Right. How do you reinterpret the safety dance? So we kind of put our signature villain sound on it, made it a little bit heavier, a little bit harder. Then we started throwing in that the song is really about drugs. So, we have what sounds like a chorus of children just screaming, drugs! It's a response. And
I feel like I don't remember that in the original.
I don't know. I watched that video again as research, and the only thing that came to my mind was a lot of drugs.
When I watched that video as a child, I thought that the members of the band were, in fact, a young man, a young woman, and a young small person. And I was very disturbed to learn that, in fact, that man, Ivan, and his brothers, and the rest of the other parts were played by synthesizers.
I believe so.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's just an example of the kind of fun we're having. We're doing different stuff and mixing all different kinds of pop culture references and influence into something that we're just trying to make a fun show. And we'll be happy to play it at Evil Expo, so that's going to be good.
I was going to ask where people could find this work. So you're saying that if they go to Evil Expo in person or online, Evil Expo being July 31st through July 30th through August 1st at the Alloy King of Prussia Hotel.
That's correct.
They can see this live. They can see this for themselves.
We'll be playing this 80s, 70s, whatever cover show live in person.
I'm excited for it.
I'm excited too. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and it's so far from what we've shown people, it really gets them dancing. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun to do.
I mean, I like to dance. You've not actually really seen me dance a lot. I think I'm going to get a chance to dance this next show. I'm going
to watch. I'm going to be there on stage, and I'm going to live stream just you dancing in the crowd.
For those of you who don't know, this is a sort of vague approximation of what the safety dance looks like.
Oh, damn it. I guess I better learn it, right?
I mean, maybe. Especially if you're doing the remix version.
Yeah, true.
We have raised $89 for charity.
Hey, that's exciting.
$89 will be going to Feeding America, which is our favorite charity. It's a good charity which satisfies. Speaking as an evil marketing genius, I kind of like charities that put most of their money towards the actual charity and very little of it towards the actual marketing and overhead and executives and such.
Right.
I'm pretty good for that.
I must ask a question.
Ask
Yes.
questions.
All right. We are raising money for a organization called Feeding America, and you are reading from a Cthulhu cookbook. Is there any relationship between these two things?
Technically, I have not read from the Cthulhu Cookbook. I have simply referenced the Cthulhu Cookbook.
Ah,
I believe that Americans should be happy, healthy, and delicious. And my reasons for that are completely pure. They're as pure as the Ivory Soap Girl from the 1970s, if you remember that reference. If you remember that reference, I owe you a cigar.
that would be Marilyn Chambers, would it not?
That would be Marilyn Chambers, a woman who eventually went on to make longer form films of a more expressive nature. Who knew? Mr. Agitator, I know you need to
Yes.
get back to the studio, so we'd like to thank you. We're going to give you a round of applause from our in-studio audience. Round of applause.
Thank you so much.
Check out his
No,
work at villains.com. You can
I
see him.
appreciate it as always.
Looking forward to having you with us at Evil Expo. Got lots to talk to you about. Have a wonderful evening, and we will
Have a
talk
great
to
night.
you soon.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Can't wait to see you guys in July.
Woo!
Woo! Good night.
Good night. Now, Chelsea, did you have something you wanted to read, or shall I keep reading, or where shall we go with this?
That's up to you. I do have things I can read, however, you are the Dark Lord.
Well, I don't want to read too many things that are just excerpts. But, so I was trying to read Infinite Jest. You cannot see the cover because this is a very old book, and but the cover is some sort of gigantic beast thing hovering over a world, and somehow in the 1970s this was humorous. And I read much of this last night as I ended up having a business meeting that ran very late, and I found myself alone in a hotel room with these supposedly humorous stories from the year of my birth, 1975. And I came to the conclusion, no one had any sense of humor in 1975. These stories are horrifying. Like my favorite story in here, which I will not read because it just doesn't work well in this medium, is The Heresies of the Large God, which is about a gigantic lizard-shaped metallic-like, it's like metal, but it doesn't have the weaknesses of metal, huge object which sort of appears on large parts of the globe, destroying large chunks of the world, smashing seas, destroying continents, throwing the entire world off kilter. And the whole story is told on the part of told by the secretary of an organization devoted to sacrificing virgins to the large god, in hopes that the large god will either smash things less or return more often or return less often, but basically that we are completely helpless before this gigantic lizard-shaped bug. No one knows what it is. It's just huge. It's bigger than the moon, and it destroys everything in its path, and that is humor from the 1970s, apparently. However, Chelsea knows my penchant for feminist science fiction in the 1970s. Well, perhaps not entirely. But this is, I'm going to read you a few pieces from Joanna Russ's Useful Phrases from the Tourist. Excuse me, Useful Phrases for the Tourist. Now, it does not give you the original languages in which you might attempt speaking this. It just gives you your translation, which is probably good because you'd have me sitting here trying to spit out completely alien syllables, and it would just be vocally painful.
I thought that everything that Joanna Russ wrote was in strange alien symbols, or at least 70s feminist jargon, which is the same thing, really.
I myself was surprised to find that her list of common phrases used by the traveler was of tremendous use. But yeah, let me just give you a couple of these. Let me give you a sampling of a page or two. This is from somewhere called the Lochrin, the peninsula and its surrounding regions. At the hotel, that is my companion. It is not intended as a tip. I will call the manager. This cannot be my room because I cannot breathe ammonia. I will be most comfortable between temperatures of 290 and 303 degrees Kelvin. Waitress, this meal is still alive. At the party. Is that you? Is that all of you? How many of you are there? I am happy to meet your clone. Interstellar amity demands that we make some physical display at this point, but I beg to be excused. Are you toxic? Are you edible? I am not edible. We humans do not regenerate. My companion is not edible. That is my ear. I am toxic. Is that how you copulate? Is that intended to be erotic? Thank you very much. Please explain. Do you turn colors? Are you pregnant? I shall leave the room. Can't we just be friends? Take me to the Earth Consulate immediately. Although I am very flattered by your kind offer, I cannot accompany you to the mating pits. At the hospital. No! My eating orifice is not at that end of my body. I would rather do the next part myself. Please do not let the atmosphere in, as I will be most uncomfortable and or dead. I do not eat lead. Placing the thermometer there will yield little or no useful information. Sightseeing. Now, if you're ever in Chelsea's lovely town of Pine Hill, there's lots of sightseeing to do, and you can always try these phrases on your tour guide. They might work. At any rate, sightseeing. You are not my guide. My guide was bipedal. We Earth people do not do that. Oh, what a jolly fine naturanium. Mating perch, a ranged spectacle, involuntary phenomenon. At what hour does the lovelorn princess throw herself into the flaming volcano? May we participate? That is not demonstrable. That is hardly likely. That is ridiculous. I've seen much better examples of that. Please direct me to the nearest sentient mammal. Oh, how many times I have said this. Take me to the Earth Consulate without delay. All right, friends, we've got about a page and a half left. People who are listening, would you like to hear the rest of Joanna Roos's useful phrases for the tourist? If you'd like to, please send large amounts of money via... There's no way to do that, is there? Just wave large amounts of money in the air, and I will assume that you're happy. All right. At the theater. Is that amusing? I'm sorry, I did not mean to be offensive. I did not intend to sit on you. I did not realize you were in this seat. Could you deform yourself a little lower? My eyes are sensitive only to a light of the wavelengths 3000 to 7000 A. Am I imagining this? Am I supposed to be imagining this? Should I be perturbed by the water on the floor? Where is the exit? Help! This is great art. My religious convictions prevent me from joining in the performance. I do not feel well. I feel very sick. I do not eat living food. Is this supposed to be erotic? May I take this home with me? Is this part of the performance? Stop touching me. Sir or madam, that is mine. Extrinsic. Sir or madam, that is mine. Intrinsic. I wish to visit the waste reclamation units. Have you finished? May I begin? You are in my way. Under no circumstances. If you do not stop that, I will call the attendant. That is forbidden by my religion. Sir or madam, this is a private unit. Sir and madam, this is a private unit. Compliments. You are more than before. Your hair is false. If you uncover your feet, I will faint. There is no room. You will undoubtedly be here tomorrow. Insults. You are just the same. There are more of you than previously. Your fingers are showing. How clean you are. You are clean but animated. And finally, general. Take me to the Earth Consulate. Direct me to the Earth Consulate. The Earth Consulate will hear of this. This is no way to treat a visitor. Please direct me to my hotel. At what time does the moon rise? Is there a moon? Is it a full moon? Take me to the Earth Consulate immediately. May I have the second volume of Wu and Fabricant, entitled Physiology, Ecology, Religion, and Customs of the Locrine? Price is no object. Something has gone amiss with my vehicle. I am dying. The end. That has been Useful Phrases for the Tourist by famed science fiction author Joanna Russ from the book Infinite Jests, a series of not particularly funny science fiction stories from the not particularly funny 1970s. I'm going to take a breather. I'll let Chelsea do some talking.
Joanna Russ. I was subjected to her in a college course once.
She wrote The Female Man, didn't she?
I'm afraid that she did, and I advise anyone who has a copy of that book to, under no circumstances, read it.
I have a copy of that book, which I, under no circumstances, read. It is in my 70s dystopias next to Caduceus Wild, which I do often read.
There was funny science fiction written in the 70s. Some of it was written by feminists.
Yes, absolutely.
There was a story which I wasn't able to locate today that I might have read otherwise in the Marion Zimmer Bradley Greyhaven collection called Just Another Vampire Story. I don't know if you remember that one.
I don't think I remember that one.
Oh, this fellow, the narrator, goes into, it's not a joke, it's a story, but the narrator goes into a gay bar, brings somebody home, and the person he brings home claims to be a vampire, and they go into the realities and myths of vampirism. Yes, I can stand sunlight, but I have to limit my exposure to it. And no, crosses don't bother me. And, the usual, it's an Anne Rice spoof, essentially. So they go through the usual things you would expect.
Darling, it wouldn't do you any good.
And spoiler alert, the punchline, of course, is when the narrator who has patiently heard this fellow out is grabbed by the vampire he brought home, who is above average strong. And the narrator simply grabs hold of the vampire he brought home, picks him off the ground, and what are you? Who are you? What are you? Oh, just another vampire.
Oh, for heaven's sake. So I want to check with the audience. I do have a number of short pieces. Most of them are by me. I also have a rather longer piece by the one and only Robert Sheckley. And I did say I would be doing mostly pieces by other people. How do people feel about a slightly longer piece? Don't all jump at once. I can read you in the comments. Go ahead. You folks in the comments. Longer, shorter, longer, shorter. Size queens, please don't weigh in. No pun intended. All right, one moment. I'm going to do a short thing and then a longer thing. And then I'll let Chelsea read something. Chelsea, pick a letter. Heck, no, pick a number between 1 and also Regina De Simone, I got your vote. So we'll do that in just a second. Number between 1 and 118.
99.
99. I've been asked to read one of my recipes, and I realized I'm not sure I have recipes immediately in front of me. But I do have a bunch of things. All right. So this is from the Superior Person's Book of Words, which admittedly is not a book of science fiction, but which I, as a science fiction author, found absolutely necessary at any and all times. Let me just pick one word, because I did want something, because we've had a request for something longer. That is superexcrescence, which is something growing superfluously. What a marvelous word. Sir, allow me to inform you that you are superexcrescent. This book was responsible for so much of my childhood. For example, flapdoodle, poppycock, balderdash. 3 magnificent words of identical signification, i.e. rubbish, nonsense, empty and meaningless talk. The author much prefers the first, partly because it is the most ludicrous in sound, and partly because of its potential use in alliance with fopdoodle. And a fopdoodle is an insignificant fool, an insignificant, as it were, fop. All right. We're going to take a big risk here. In fact, Chelsea, could you cover me while I just wet my throat?
Glug, 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 glug. If I were a deep one.
This is by Mr. Robert Sheckley, an author from around these parts. In fact, at one point, he speaks of a spaceship that is cleverly disguised to look like Fairlawn, New Jersey, which coincidentally is a town 2 towns over from me. This story is called The Same to You Doubled, and it's going to involve a very mild Yiddish accent. Now, why are the characters in this Jewish? Not exactly sure. I do know that I myself have a best friend who is also Jewish, who is absolutely my best friend and not secretly my worst friend. The metaphysics of this story are never explained. It's a devil story. It's a devil grants wishes story. So we have that whole genre of, we know the devil sometimes grants wishes. They have some sort of malicious twist to them. And then we see what happens to poor mortals who try it. And I'm happy enough with that trope. As long as it's explored with good taste, and in this story it is, I will jump into it. So the field agent for the devil has proven his devilosity and offered our man 3 wishes, anything he wants, with only one catch. Whatever he wants, his worst enemy gets doubled. You can see that the name of this collection of short stories is in fact, well, you can't see now, but is in fact The Same to You Doubled. I'm going to take a bit chance here, but I'm going to try this out. Sitwell shook his head. Cassidy is a harmless, half-witted lunatic. He'll never lift a finger. You have my word on that. Your worst enemy is a man named Edward Samuel Manowitz. You're sure of that? Elsie asked incredulously. Completely sure. But Manowitz happens to be my best friend. Also your worst enemy, Sitwell replied. Sometimes it works out like that. Goodbye, Mr. Edelstein, and good luck with your 3 wishes. Wait, Edelstein cried. He wanted to ask a million questions, but he was embarrassed, and so he asked only, how can it be that hell is so crowded you don't need new souls? Because only heaven is infinite, Sitwell told him. You know about heaven, too? Of course, it's the parent corporation. But now I really must be getting along. I have an appointment in Poughkeepsie. Good luck, Mr. Edelstein. Edelstein sat perfectly still for 5 minutes. Now, I'm going to make an editorial decision and leave out the 1.5 pages where the character slowly realizes that Manowitz has a million little mannerisms that make him go crazy. Just Nuts! I'll just say that he gets to the conclusion that he does like Manowitz, but he hates Manowitz. And that if Manowitz gets twice whatever he has, Manowitz will be a big bragging jerk about it. He will never live it down as long as he lives. And it will be terrible. It will be the worst. So he tries to figure out, how is he going to have 3 wishes knowing his worst enemy gets double whatever he asks for? All right. And we leave him with this lament worthy of Job. My God, Edelstein thought, an hour ago I was a poor but contented man. Now I have 3 wishes and an enemy. And that, my friends, that is 2018 for me. So Edelstein gets a leave of absence from his job. He sits around thinking about castles, but there's a lot of maintenance on a castle. Plus, Manowitz will get 2 castles. The second week, he thinks about taking a big vacation. But Manowitz will get double the vacation. Double the sand, double the sea, double the drinks, double the everything. Double the fun. Double the whoever he might meet along the way. No. So, during the final week, Edelstein was getting angry and desperate, even cynical. He said to himself, I'm an idiot. How do I know there's anything to this? So Sitwell could walk through doors. He walks through the door without opening the door. Does that make him a magician? Maybe I've been worried about nothing. He surprised himself by standing up abruptly and saying, in a loud, firm voice, I want $20,000, and I want it right now. He felt a gentle tug at his right buttock. He pulled out his wallet. Inside it, he found a certified check made out to him for $20,000. He went down to his bank and cashed the check, trembling, certain that the police would grab him. The manager looked at the check and initialed it. The teller asked him what denominations he wanted it in. Edelstein told the teller to credit it to his account. As he left the bank, Manowitz came running in, an expression of fear, joy, and bewilderment on his face. Edelstein hurried home before Manowitz could speak to him. He had a pain in his stomach for the rest of the day. Idiot! He'd asked for only a lousy $20,000, but Manowitz had gotten him $40,000. A man could die from the aggravation. Edelstein spent his days alternating between apathy and rage. The pain in his stomach had come back, which meant that he was probably giving himself an ulcer. It was all so damned unfair. Did he have to push himself into an early grave worrying about Manowitz? Yes! For now he realized that Manowitz really was his enemy, and the thought of enriching his enemy was literally killing him. He thought about that and he said to himself, Edelstein, listen to me. It can't go on like this. You must get some satisfaction. He paced up and down his apartment. The pain was definitely an ulcer. What else could it be? Then it came to him. Edelstein stopped pacing. His eyes rolled wildly, and seizing paper and pencil, he made some lightning calculations. When he finished, he flushed, excited, happy for the first time since Sitwell's visit. He stood up. He shouted, I want 600 pounds of chopped chicken liver, and I want it right now. For you going out there, yes, people do indeed eat chopped chicken liver, although frankly, why, I couldn't tell you. The caterers began to arrive within 5 minutes. Edelstein ate several giant portions of chopped chicken liver, stored 2 pounds of it in his refrigerator, and sold most of the rest of it to a caterer at half price, making over $700 in the deal. The janitor had to take away 75 pounds that had been overlooked. Edelstein had a good laugh at the thought of Manowitz standing in his apartment, up to his neck in chopped chicken liver. His enjoyment was short-lived. He learned that Manowitz had kept 10 pounds for himself. The man always had a gross appetite. Presented 5 pounds to a drab little widow he was trying to make an impression on, and sold the rest back to the caterer for 1/3 off. Nope, everything okay? Earning over $2,000. I am the world's prize imbecile, Edelstein thought. For a minute's stupid satisfaction, I gave up a wish worth conservatively $100 million. And what do I get out of it? 2 pounds of chopped chicken liver, a few $100, and a lifelong friendship with my janitor. He knew he was killing himself from sheer brute aggravation. He was down to one wish now. We come down to the end. And now it was crucial that he spend that final wish wisely. But he had to ask for something he wanted desperately, something that Manowitz would not like at all. 4 weeks had gone by. One day, Edelstein realized glumly that his time was just about up. He had racked his brain only to confirm his worst suspicions. Manowitz liked everything he liked. Manowitz liked castles, women, wealth, cars, vacations, wine, music, food. Whatever you could name, Manowitz the copycat liked it. Then he remembered, Manowitz, by some strange quirk of taste buds, could not abide locks. Thank God I'm not alone in the universe. Just saying. Anyway. But Edelstein didn't like locks either, not even Nova Scotia. Edelstein prayed, Dear God, who is in charge of hell and heaven, I've had 3 wishes and used 2 miserably. Listen, God, I don't mean to be ungrateful, but I should ask you, if a man happens to be granted 3 wishes, shouldn't he be able to do better for himself than I've done? Shouldn't he be able to have something good happen to him without filling the pockets of Manowitz, his worst enemy, who does nothing but collect double with no effort or pain? The final hour arrived. Edelstein grew calm, in the manner of a man who has accepted his fate. He realized that his hatred of Manowitz was futile, unworthy of him. With a new and sweet serenity, he said to himself, I am now going to ask for what I, Edelstein, personally want. If Manowitz has to go along for the ride, it simply can't be helped. Edelstein stood up very straight. He said, This is my last wish. I've been a bachelor too long. What I want is a woman whom I can marry. She should be about 5 feet, 4 inches tall, weigh about 115 pounds, shapely, of course, and with naturally blonde hair. She should be intelligent, practical, in love with me, Jewish, of course, but sensual and fun-loving. Then Edelstein's mind suddenly kicked into high gear. And especially, he added, she should be, I don't know quite how to put this, she should be the maximum that I want and can handle, speaking now in a purely sexual sense. You understand what I mean, Sybil? Delicacy forbids that I should spell it out more specifically than that, but if the matter must be explained to you. There was a light, somehow sexual tapping at the door. Edelstein went to answer it, chuckling to himself. Over $20,000. 2 pounds of chopped chicken liver. Now this, Manowitz, he thought, I have you now. Double the most a man wants is something I probably shouldn't have wished on my worst enemy. But I did. The end. Oh, this reading is seriously work. Let me tell you,
again, just to show the audience that I can indeed talk while Jeff Mack is drinking a glass of water. See? I told you, he's very talented. I can talk while he drinks water.
Chelsea, I was going to ask if there was something you wanted to read.
I could. I was going to perhaps read are excerpts okay? Because I was going to read a brief excerpt from my novel.
That sounds wonderful. From your novel, Pine Hell.
Yes, which is available on Amazon Kindle. I would say that I'm not reading an excerpt from my novel and hope that people will be inspired to buy it, but that would be entirely untrue. I am shamelessly trying to flog my book. If you don't mind.
I do not mind in the slightest. People out there, have you ever heard Chelsea read before? If you haven't, you're in for a treat. Oof.
Turning around, Lady Dorchester saw a horse-drawn gypsy wagon pulling into the driveway. Pulled by 2 fine-looking draft horses, it was the sort of brightly colored wagon one would expect to see in a Victorian carnival or circus. I'd add, parenthetically, the sort of thing that one might hope to see at Gildan Fanfare. Plug, plug. A side panel proclaimed it to be the wagon of Dr. McGillicuddy's traveling medicine show. Upon the driver's seat was a silver-haired gentleman in a waistcoat, sans sleeves, or shirt, displaying upon both arms lovely illustrations from the fine literary works of the late Theodore Giesel, M.D. Next to him sat a black cat who was indeed wearing a fine topper with a canary feather in its band, matching the one said cat was licking from his whiskers. Slung on the driver's arm was a mandolin case. From out of the back of the wagon entered a lady in a lovely green velvet gown, wearing a stethoscope about her neck and carrying a doctor's valise. Behind her tumbled a child in knee breeches and a velvet blazer who seemed to be asking for more something or other. A 12-year-old girl in a proper office worker's business suit, and a werewolf. The werewolf was smoking a meerschaum pipe and reading Gibbon's Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire. A pleasant matronly woman emerged from the wagon behind him wearing a hooped skirt and carrying a shepherd's crook, with which she seemed to be literally herding the rest of the family. Wraith the dog bolted out of the door and, standing upon his hind legs, solemnly shook hands with the werewolf. The driver, meanwhile, opened his mandolin case and began singing. "'Tis a fine day for a visit. The weather is so exquisite. All is peaceful and calm. Or is it? 'Tis certain either way to test the mettle of all who would dare to settle in the village of Pine Hill. Curiouser and curiouser." Lady Sylvia hastened out the door to meet the new family. "Hi, I'm Charlie," said a pleasant matronly woman, hooking the boy who was about to pick something out of the garden about the neck with the hook of her crook. The child came back, but seemed to have caught a cute little animal of some sort, which bore no resemblance to any creature under any existing copyright, but which did have a large bird-like beak through which it sneezed, making a noise that sounded as if it were saying, "Beak, achoo!" "Madam, I'm Adam," said the werewolf, relighting his pipe. "And I'm Alice McGillicuddy, M.D., added the pleasant lady with the medical bag while taking the liberty of examining Lady Dorchester's elbow with the stethoscope as the sky suddenly darkened and a fiendish cackle was heard overhead. It was impossible to tell where the cackling was coming from, although Lady Sylvia was forced to admit that the stereotypical wicked witch on the standard anti-gravity equipped broomstick could not be ruled out. The sky darkened because it was filled with a shipload of fruit flies. These small, gnat-like beasties were itsy-bitsy, if not actually teensy-weensy, and swooped down en masse and covered everything. Lady Dorchester was forced to pull the veil of her motoring bonnet down over her face, and some of the wee vermin penetrated that. What to do when even a lady's veil is to no avail? It turned out that somebody who did no avail was the good Dr. McGillicuddy, who from her medical bag drew a veil said to have come from Isis herself by way of Madame Helena Blavatsky. In any event, by covering herself with this gauzy sacred relic, the doctor was able to afford herself enough protection to wend her way back to the wagon and play a record on an old-fashioned hand-crank Victrola. The air was now full of fruit flies and the sound of Judy Garland singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Being irresistible to fruit flies, this at least got a lot of the buzzing horde into the wagon. Next, the metaphysician pulled from her bag a lovely green frog. She kissed the crown of its froggy little head and released it. Jeremiah, for that happened to be the creature's name. The air was now full of fruit flies and the sound of Judy Garland's. Took a swig of wine and, muttering incoherently, shot out his fantastic elastic tongue and began a feast of flies, taking time to croak, thus calling his friends from the nearby creek, who alerted other amphibious hoppers until first the lawn of Lady Dorchester's and eventually the whole town was filled with frogs. They had the whole town jumping. This, of course, created the problem of how to get rid of a plague of frogs that had come to devour the flogs. This was solved by playing La Marseillaise, as this tune sent all the frogs running for their lives as fast as the legs they were so determined to keep would carry them. I could continue, but I believe gives you an idea of the flavor. The whole Ruddy book is in a similar vein.
And I found that really terribly pleasant. And I feel a little silly that I don't have anything from the cookbook immediately in front of me. If you could stall for a minute, I might grab something from the cookbook real quick. I'm sure I've got a copy of it around here somewhere, at least as long as Microsoft Word holds out, which it won't be for much longer because Microsoft Word has decided to triple charge me for Word for no particular reason. Who knows? I don't know. So how many people here have read the Villain Punk cookbook? I have, although not admittedly from cover to cover. So I have to figure out which recipe. Now, if I'd had a helpful library assistant, I would probably have started off with a list of all the recipes. But instead, I shall allow people to discover various things about the recipes as they sort of wander through the book, by which I mean I just put in the recipes where they seem to be about correct. And there's a recipe in there for tongue, which most people in there have said is way too much work for anyone to try. And I am fascinated by that because it is actually the one and only true family recipe in there. Like, it's the actual recipe that my family uses, although we don't always use it necessarily. We use it for beef tongue, totally for beef tongue. Just so you know, beef 100% of the time. There's also something called jatternicki, which is a kind of sausage. Let me give you a very simple piece. This is a combination one. This is page 54. You'll find a picture with a sphinx looking grumpy, drinking a cup of coffee. This is extra spicy. Wake the hell up! The heroes are coming. Coffee. Yes, this is instant coffee because we are extra villainous. I guess you could use real coffee, but if you already know you're going to do terrible things to your caffeine source, why go halfway? 1 cup hot water, 3 tablespoons powdered milk, 2 tablespoons espresso instant coffee. If there are any masochists in the audience, you're welcome. 1 sachet ginger honey tea. 1 tablespoon Tabasco sauce. 1 teaspoon cayenne pepper. Add other spice if you want. I happen to enjoy a bit of Coulson's mustard powder, but I also enjoy a lot of ridiculous things. Finally, not even 1/100th of a teaspoon of Dr. Bernorium's Psycho Serum. Really. I looked this up after the 3rd time I drank some. Weapons-grade pepper spray has less spice than this stuff. Bernorium sauce should be used the same way that I use a flame when cooking meat for myself and nobody's watching. I just wave a lighter at the stuff to scare it, and then I shut the lighter and I eat. This is not a dare, I promise. I like you alive and want you to buy more books. Unless you're one of my enemies, in which case you're too cowardly to eat this stuff anyway. If you're a serious spice fanatic and you do not have medical conditions and you must try it, use the tiniest amount possible. For real. If you've tried like ghost pepper syrup, ghost pepper stuff, and you've been fine, still, even then, this is hardcore. Take the warnings on the container seriously. Wash your hands very, very thoroughly. If the amount you're looking at looks ludicrously tiny, it probably isn't. I eat spice.
I'm not sure if it was a freezeway or what, but Jeff seems to be frozen.
It could be his head.
I wonder if Jeff is hearing me, in which case he might know what to do to get unfrozen. And now I seem to be on me merry own. I was hoping to try some of that concoction Jeff was talking about. I rather like ghost peppers, so
Can you see me
I
now?
could probably go a step above that if I needs must.
Definitely, if needs must, go above it. I will give you now, very quickly, the recipe. Thank you. I'm sorry I don't know how long I was frozen for, but mostly I was talking about how anything over 5 million Scoville units will potentially kill you, except in tiny doses, and maybe even then. So you'll really want to save it for when the heroes are visiting. Instructions.
You said that you don't know how long you were frozen?
I don't.
Let me ask, before you were frozen, was the world run by a giant seal?
Yes, it was.
Then I guess it hasn't been that long.
Oh, thank heavens. Thank goodness. All right. Add everything into a cup and stir. Chill or add ice if desired. Warning, spicy, like very. Notes, there are 4 of them. One reason I like instant coffee is that it is against all that is decent and right in the world, and it gives me a head start on the day's villainy. Yes, almost everything in this recipe is powdered. This makes it perfect for bunkers, desert outposts, and moon bases. For example. You can always add more spice, but remember, at a certain point, it stops being coffee and starts being caffeinated pain. Really, in my experience, Dr. Brenorium is perfect. Not for drinking, just for intimidating other hot sauces into behaving. It goes well with Hellfire S'mores, the whole recipe for which is a little hellfire, a touch of brimstone, some chocolate, some giant marshmallows, a few lost souls, and voila, s'mores. You'll get to see them if you hang out with us at Halloween in the Catskills Returns at the end of October this coming year. As a note, P.S. I solicited actual recipes for Hellfire S'mores, and it turns out there are about 1 billion s'mores recipes out there. I realized that what I could add was less an unusual recipe and more a better philosophical approach to the idea of eating the life forces of the damned with chocolate. P.P.S. It should be noted, if one takes the theology of C.S. Lewis seriously, as I do, eating a damned soul would deny that soul to the devil, who would be extremely, extremely upset. Therefore, I humbly submit that, philosophically, regardless of where you fall on the subject of Lucifer, this subject and this tea is guaranteed to make somebody unhappy. Oh my goodness, Alex is here. Alex contributed an amazing recipe. And while I won't read the whole recipe because Alex is very intimidating and I didn't want to mess with their writing, you can look up Alex's Maple Bacony Goodness by Alex Bischoff McDonough. McDonough? Am I pronouncing that correctly? You can look, I would recommend making friends with Alex and asking how to make Alex's Maple Bacony Goodness, or seeing if Alex will make some for you. This is my theory. At least this would be my suggestion to you. All right. Friends, this is our very first reading. And we're running till 8:30. We've got half an hour left. Let me just check. I have 2 pieces left, one that I might or might not have the voice to read. So let's see. Is there any possibility that Orc Girl has come back yet?
There's not much. This is the last.
Uh-oh.
You guys.
This, by the way, is my book, Villains, Villainy, and Villain Punk. You can find it wherever fine books on villain punk are sold, which would be Amazon. I do have a short story called The Frog Variations, which is a fairy tale gone quite awry. And I have a story called Coyote is Not Real, which I really like. But I really, folks, in this time that I've been out of the public spotlight, I've not been doing a lot of public speaking. I have not done a lot of reading lately. So reading out loud has actually been a bit of a strain from my voice. Chelsea, tell me, how do you keep sane during this particular weird time that we live in?
My poor Jeff, you can't possibly so far gone that you would regard me as sane, can you?
Well, no. I wouldn't say sane.
You wouldn't know this from the events because you always see me when I'm at a convention as a performer or an MC or a rankator.
Raconteur.
Thank you. I was trying not to say racketeer, but rankator, yes. And you wouldn't know that when I'm not actually at a convention or performing on radio or something of that nature, I was practicing social distancing before there was an epidemic.
So you were just really socially distant from everybody.
You've been in Pine Hill?
I have been in Pine Hill. Pine Hill is socially distant from the entire rest of the known universe. Pine Hill is just social distance incarnate.
I'm closer to the local chipmunk community than I am to my human neighbors.
Alvin, Simon, or Theodore?
All three, with David Seville.
There are a lot of great stories in this book that I find funny, but some of them are a little dated. There's a lot of stories in this book, almost none of which I find funny. But this is Infinite Jests. It is a book of humorous science fiction. This is my favorite story. It is Heresies of the Huge God. I want to read just a little bit of this because I'm not entirely sure that our orc has returned, and also because I'm a little afraid to read this because it's a complicated little story. And I'm going to read it right from the middle. I'm going to read it in medias res. So imagine, the author of this is a prophet, in fact, a scribe of the ordained Orthodox Sacrificial Church. And we're going to speak about what happened to the huge God. The huge God is a big, big object that looks like a giant metal lizard, but doesn't respond to anything humankind does to it. This is worrisome. All right. So about halfway through, as we are calling for a new crusade, this person says, in the churches of the world, the huge God in the churches of the world, the huge God was asked to give a sign that he had witnessed the great victory over the American unbelievers. All who opposed this enlightened act were destroyed. He answered the prayers in the year 297 by moving swiftly forward only a comparatively small amount and lying mainly in the Pacific Ocean, stretching almost as far south as what is now the Antarctica, what was then the Tropic of Capricorn, and what had previously been the equator. Some of his left legs covered the towns along the western American seaboard as far south as Guadalajara, where the impression of his foot is still marked by the Temple of the Sacred Toe, including some of the towns such as San Francisco already mentioned. We speak of this as the first shift. It was rightly taken as a striking proof of the huge God's contempt for America. This feeling became rife in America also, purified by famine, plague, gigantic earth tremors, and other natural disasters. The population could now better accept the words of the priests, all becoming converted to a man. Mass pilgrimages were made to see the great body of the huge God, stretching forth from one end of their nation to the other. Bolder pilgrims climbed aboard flying machines and flew over his shoulder, across which savage rainstorms played for 100 years without ceasing. Those who were converted became more extreme than their brethren, older in the faith, across the other side of the world. No sooner had the American congregation united at the Council of Dead Tench, year 322, that they broke away on a point of doctrine. This date marks the beginning of the Catholic Universal Sacrificial Church. We of the Orthodox persuasion did not enjoy, in those distant days, the harmony with our American brothers that we do now. The doctrinal point on which the church is split apart was, as is well known, the question of whether humanity should wear clothes that imitated the metallic sheen of the huge god. It was claimed this was setting up man in God's image, but it was a calculated slur on the Orthodox Universal priests who wore plastic or metal garments in honor of their maker. So, after that, quite a lot of people killed each other, quite a lot. But I am going to just skip down, if I might, to the conclusion. So the huge god is this gigantic object that moves but doesn't act like a living creature for other reasons. We can't communicate with it. We can't hurt it. It's just big and it's there. And sometimes it appears on Earth. Sometimes it vanishes. And now it has vanished. Gradually, this peaceful period saw some reestablishment of order to the seasons and some cessation of the floods, showers of blood, hailstorms, earthquakes, deluges of icicles, apparitions of comets, volcanic eruptions, miasmic fogs, destructive winds, blights, plagues of wolves and dragons, tidal waves, year-long thunderstorms, lashing rains, and sundry other scourges of which the scriptures of this period speak so eloquently. The fathers of the church, retiring to the comparative safety of the inland seas and sunny meadows of Gobiland in Mongolia, established a new orthodoxy well calculated in its rigor of prayer and human burnt offering to invite the huge god to leave our poor wretched world for a better and more substantial one, please. So the story comes to present, the year 900, only a decade passed, as your scribe writes. In that year, the huge god left our earth. Recall, if you will, that the first departure in 89 lasted only 20 months. Yet the huge god has been gone from us already half that number of years. We need him back. We cannot live without him, as we should have realized long ago had we not blasphemed in our hearts. On his going, he propelled our humble globe on such a course that we are doomed to deeper winter all the year. The sun is far away and shrunken. The seas freeze half the year. Icebergs march across our fields at midday. It is too dark to read without a rushlight. Nothing will grow. Woe is us! Yet we deserve everything we get. This is a just punishment, for throughout all the centuries of our epoch, when our kind was so relatively happy and undisturbed, we prayed like fools that the huge god would leave us, and now he has. I ask that all the elders elect of the council to brand those prayers as the fourth and greatest heresy, and to devote that henceforth all men's efforts shall be completely devoted to calling on the huge god to return to us at once. I also ask that the sacrifice rate be stepped up again. It is useless to skimp on things just because we are running out of sacrificial victims. I also ask that our fourth crusade be launched and that we start killing each other quickly, fast, before the air starts to freeze in our nostrils. Oh, the 70s, they were just full of lulls. Full of lulls.
Bless you.
That was truly hilarious.
I don't know what was going on in the 1970s. I don't know.
Oh, I do.
What was happening to science fiction in the 1970s? What was all that?
Jimmy Collins.
Well, what was primarily going on at that time is that this was when the science fiction community discovered drugs. There were always a few random heads in science fiction going all the way back to Jules Verne's fondness for opiated hashish, but in the 1970s, it kind of spread to the people that were in no way socially rebels, the people that had slide rules hanging off of their belts and too many pens in a plastic pocket protector were taking up the habits of the demi-monde to an astonishing degree, and it even afflicted or enhanced some of the old guard. People like Isaac Asimov and Carl Sagan were active and prominent normal supporters at this time period. And
Carl Sagan was on drugs? You're kidding me.
there are millions and billions and billions and billions of stars up. I believe that's an actual quote, isn't it?
Billions and billions. I don't know the actual quote so much. I've only read it in Doonesbury.
I forget exactly how many times he used the word billions, but the first time you saw that on Cosmos, if you were a young pot-smoking hoodlum, it was quite astonishing. You have this, there are billions and billions and billions, and we're all there. Oh yeah, he's gone.
Well, as we're entering the last bit of our discussion, I'm going to say so that we've rather subversively transformed this into a charity challenge, in that all the tickets are free. They're bragging rights only. Although, please, of course, obviously, brag over them forever. We've given away 89 tickets, so I'm going to take $89 and donate them to Feeding America, which is a favorite charity.
Not to be confused with the organization I support, which is called Feeding America to Cthulhu.
As far as I know, there are no direct connections between the two organizations, and that is all I'm going to say about the matter. Now, next time we'll probably take more requests. I will probably be a little more adventurous. I'll probably have a little more sci-fi, and I will probably have a few more of my own short stories, because I really have written quite a lot of short stories, and I suppose they do fit. Would anyone like
I was actually hoping to hear an excerpt or two from I Hate Your Time Machine.
But I'd have to get up. Oh, first, do we have any orcs in the audience? Okay, quick. Chelsea, cover for me.
So, once upon a time, in a galaxy far, far away, there was an evil emperor. Wish I knew the next line so I could keep going.
I'm sorry, did someone call for an evil emperor?
As I said, once upon a time in a galaxy far, far away, there was an evil emperor. That timing was almost perfect.
Alex, for those of you who want to help with Feeding America, I would say probably just make a personal donation, only because it seems weird for me to ask you to PayPal me money and then for me to say, well, I'll take that money and add it. I originally said that, because anyone can get any number of tickets they want, I don't want people to abuse it. But if you want to go in and get a couple extra tickets, I'll just spend a couple extra dollars, and you can always buy a book or buy Chelsea a drink or something. Besides, Alex, I owe you one for that amazing recipe. I'm now looking to see if there's something in I Hate Your Time Machine that's actually short enough for me to read it, because, oh yeah, okay. I actually like, I like lots of these things. I'm just going to say that it's been a long time since I've read this. Oh my God, what font is this in? Sorry, so this was the first book I tried to make an actual Amazon Kindle book. It may mean that the last two things that I read are both going to be countdowns, but I'm okay with that. All right. Here, 13 signs that you are actually the evil twin from a parallel but opposite universe from I Hate Your Time Machine by Jeff Mack. Who is me? Oh, let me just put in an appropriately showy banner. Hopefully, come see Chelsea at Evil Expo. Come see me at Evil Expo. Come see yourself at Evil Expo. All right, number 13. Again, signs you are actually the evil twin. Number 13. You own magnificent vestments, which is not conclusive in and of itself, but you call them vestments in public, in front of other people. 12. All of your tattoos are actually secret society symbols, including the baby duck, especially the baby duck. 11. Every once in a while, for no apparent reason, you look off towards nothing in particular, then say out loud, "No, truly, the pleasure is all mine." Yeah. Number 10. You keep your living space in shadowy darkness at all times. You don't have any particular ability to see in the dark. In fact, you, like your regular world counterpart, possibly need a new glasses prescription. Also, it's entirely likely that you live in a world of abundant, affordable, energy-based light sources, and you still have a Baroque preference for wall sconces with guttering torches in them. I see you. Number 9. Your imaginary friend is named Beelzebub, or Beelzy for short. That is not a satanic reference, that is a John Collier reference, which might be a satanic reference in and of itself. Meta story. Number 8. You own a cat. Number 7. You are a cat. Number 6. You believe it's important to take time out in life for all the little things that make it worthwhile, like snipping flowers, baking cakes with almost non-lethal amounts of arsenic in them, and goosing statues in the dark. Number 5. You own a piranha tank large enough to, speaking hypothetically, temporarily store a human body. And you keep it, for some reason, beneath a swinging trapdoor in your office. Number 4. Your lucky t-shirt has several bloodstains on it. Not your blood. Green blood. In the shape of little skulls. Number 3. You recognize that the number 3 is a trap. Number 2. You question whether there's such a thing as an opposite universe and how exactly we're defining evil here, and what makes one of you good, and who's doing the defining in all this, and while we're at it, how come you have to have the facial hair? Number 1. I'd say you're reading this book, but that's a cop-out, a snide little self-congratulation, a humble brag about my own villainy. No, the number 1 reason you might be the evil twin is it's far, far better to be the evil twin. Far more fun. Far more fulfilling in life. You don't even have to kill or even find your alt-universe counterpart. You can just decide, I am the evil twin, and act accordingly. And if your alt-universe self ever finds you, they'd best step aside and just leave you to it. And if they're not smart enough to figure that out, they deserve what you do to them. Really, every day should be the process of seeking out and destroying the versions of yourself which do not truly help your life, so that you might supplant them with far better versions of yourself. You're not really the evil twin. You're just accelerating the process.
I like that.
Well, thank you. I'm going to end on an orc note, but Chelsea, do you have anything you want to say before we do that? Chelsea,
What?
I hear that you have a show called In Goth We Trust. Where would we find such a show?
You would find In Goth We Trust every Wednesday and Thursday night on WIOX, which is 91.3 Radio Roxbury. But if you're watching this, you're computer literate, and you'll probably instead stream it at wioxradio.org.
I'm sold. Well,
We
folks,
had a wonderful interview last night. May I do a plug for a friend?
do a plug.
I have a wonderful interview on In Goth We Trust last night with Ryder Cooley of the Dust Bowl Fairies. And they have a show at 8 o'clock tomorrow night, which is Saturday. It's called Wish You Were Here, spelled HEAR. Tickets are pay what you will. And they're available through Eventbrite. You can go to Dust Bowl Fairies, spelled with an E, FAERIES.com, and the information is there for Wish You Were Here, and here is spelled HEAR. Writer does love her clever spellings. If anyone is awake at 10 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, and I can't imagine why they would be, but I've been informed that I have to be because I've been dragooned into participating in PenguinCon. And if anyone goes to penguincon.com and opts to get an Eventbrite ticket to that event, at 10 o'clock in the morning, I will be speaking on the vampire as an evolving metaphor. I'm certainly an evolving metaphor. And at 11 o'clock, I will be doing a pontificating in support of fantasy-based science fiction, in which I will be decrying the abomination that calls itself hard science fiction. Unlike male porn stars, I do not think that science fiction should be hard. I like my science fiction soft and gooey and speculative and heavily laced with horror and with fantasy and with copious amounts of absinthe, but that's maybe just me.
No, I think we're on that same page. Well, on that note, I'm going to close with something short, but I think helpful to everyone. It's another short piece. I apparently labeled it by some unknown numerical system, which is only understandable by my word processor, which I am now breaking up with. But I'll leave you with a couple of minutes of some orcish wisdom. Orcish skulls are much too thick, adventurers complain. They mean weapons bounce instead of stick, and they hate that there's so much brain. The knowledge of orcs is, as I've discussed elsewhere, contained within an oral tradition. I thought I'd write down a bit of it for you, and I've translated it into the common tongue. Don't worry, it's an accurate translation. Trust me. Would a villain lie? Some of the accumulated wisdom of the orcs. Hobbit goes best with a playful white Zinfandel. Training pet wargs requires love, care, and an extensive first aid kit. If a human gives you a gift, throw it away. The gift and the human. Jenny is exempt. Sunlight burns, but the fluorescent lighting in shopping malls is really tacky. Not every orc beats drums in the deep. Some of us play bass. If the wagon's wobbling, check for goblins. Your head is good for smashing through problems. If you can't apply the outside part, use the inside part. In many situations, you'll want both. Trust fairy tales about as much as you would trust fairies, which is about as far as you can throw them if you wad them up into a ball and have a real good throwing arm. If you can't eat it, it's probably not important. To stay healthy, you need to try consuming more green. Have a little more elf. If at first you don't succeed, get a bigger battle axe. Only blood buys freedom. I know the thing the humans gave you is shiny, but your hair is falling out. It's not a random mutation. It's the gods gifting you with a second head so you can be twice as ugly in one lifetime. Remember to floss your favorite tusk. The unicorn is a pretty beast, and it won't rest till you're deceased. Don't deal with them and never barter. They're like humans, only smarter. They're vicious as bandages rubbed in salt. And whatever they do, they'll claim it's your fault. Many things you encounter will assume that because you're unsightly to them, you're also unwise. don't disabuse them of this notion until after you've made off with their gold, their loved ones, and their condescension. It's not impossible that humans really are your friends. It's just historically unlikely. They stopped trying to make friends with us when they realized we wouldn't play fetch. The gods gave orcs our blood and bone and made our lives a grinding stone. Then they went off to annoy the elves, so our sharpening is to ourselves. Take damn good care of your dark lords. If someone breaks them, it's really hard to get another one. Ah, that shiny thing was nasty, wasn't it? You will be missed, and the leading cause of death in orcs continues to be, as it always has been, trusting humans. For those of you who do not know Orc Girl, you can look up her comic at, I want to say it's orcgirlcomic.com. In fact, I might actually be able to do this. There's even an Orc Girl comic brand somewhere around here. Chelsea, would you like to say some words to thank everyone for coming out?
Of course. Something along the lines of thank you, everyone, for coming out. Especially those of you who are LGBTQIA, and you asked me to say a few words, and I actually said a few letters instead. I'm sorry.
I mean, the letters that stand for words. I myself actually put the wrong letters into a banner, so I'm just going to cover for that. Ahem. I really enjoy reading this comic. It's one of my favorite fantasy comics. It's one of my favorite comics these days. I'm really enjoying the way the plot's progressing, the way the story is progressing. For those who have an interest in things kink-related, I'm really fascinated at the way the kink situation is evolving, which is actually quite rare. And indeed, as Chelsea might remember from those days, was one of the greatest weaknesses of erotic works of the 1970s on that subject. But on a final note, I'd like to thank you all for coming out. I will keep writing. You can find me on Twitter at Dark Lord Journal. You can find me at Evil Expo. You can find my books on Amazon. I will let Chelsea also outro herself, but you can find her, among other things, at Evil Expo, Penguicon apparently, on WIX Radio Roxbury on Wednesday and Thursday night for her radio show In Goth We Trust. You are all amazing creatures, and of course you are all fantastic villains. It has been our honor to serve you. I don't have anything else to say except hope you guys have a wonderful weekend, have lots of relaxation, have a really good time, do all the things that I wouldn't do, because I'm going to work my tail off because I've got a lot of things that I want to create, and I'm kind of excited to do them. Thank you for helping be a part of it. Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight. And Chelsea, thank you especially for being a co-host. Orc Girl, thank you for being our guest star guest. Thank you to Angel and Alex and everyone else who showed up.
Mr. Agitator.
And of course, Mr. Agitator of V is for Villains and his new 80s project. Oh my God. Which
I
apparently
am so looking forward to that.
I'm excited as something that's really excited by things, which I guess would be me. Good night, everyone. May the hair on your toes grow long and curly, or, whatever else it is that Spock says. Take good care. Good night.